of all the days. Well, welcome here to the Foghorn Brewhouse, and this is Lunaticks Live number 3 as we continue with the process of developing and understanding what innovation and smart city is all about. Joining me up here tonight, being hosted here at the Foghorn down on King Street, I've got Gordon Whitehead. Thank you, Gordon. And we have Olivia Olley from the Good Idea and the Production Hub, which is a co-working space. So, and also it's all live audience. Good folk have turned out to cheer along and perhaps hurl some questions and perhaps even hurl some tomatoes from the stage, or up onto the stage. So at this stage, we've got a really interesting lineup of people with us tonight, and it's all about infrastructure. And I guess, what is infrastructure? How does that work? You know, who is being supported by the infrastructure? What's infrastructure all about? So tonight we've got joining us is Todd Williams, who's the Chief Executive Officer of RDA Hunter, and he's going to be talking about smart specialization strategy and the experience of what the Europeans have been doing in the Ruhr Valley in Germany. And then followed we've got Dr. Gary Ellem, who's the Program Manager at the Tom Farrell Institute. And he's going to be talking about future urban transport infrastructure needs. And then we're also going to be joined by Alec Roberts, who is a clean specialist, a clean energy specialist and consults. And he's going to be talking about new power grids and the approach to generating energy for cities and communities. So, but at this stage, what else is happening, guys? You know, what's other exciting things?
Well, I want to plug what's been happening in April. It's been a big tech month in April. We started off with Hacking the Sun at CSIRO, which was actually fantastic. $10,000 worth of prize money went up, followed by the Hacking Health Tech.
Oh yes,
So that was at the university for undergrads. So Laughing Minds organised that. So they had a great time.
Where was that held?
Oh, that was only the 17th, the weekend of the 17th. But unfortunately, what I wanted to talk about here, but it hasn't been announced, but it was supposed to. But there's some grants being thrown about on the urban infrastructure, and there's a grant for that's been put in by the city. It's for $80 million. We was hoping it'd be announced there, but unfortunately, it hasn't yet. Right, so maybe next time, the next events.
Next event?
We may have some
which
great
is coming up in June,
yes.
Which is all going to be about co-working spaces, Olivia.
Unless there's a federal election.
Federal election, that's right, and we could have an election special.
Yes, we've been working behind the scenes, speaking to a few of the candidates, and so we may have an election special based on technology and innovation, which is a big buzzword for the government at the moment.
We called Malcolm's office earlier and we're waiting for a reply for him to come along to Lunaticks Live 2 months' time. It could happen.
And he could, yes, because in fact he spoke very, very well and with great enthusiasm about what RDA had been doing, because apparently the RDA and the whole smart specialisation strategy, the 3 S's, is actually the only region that's actually undertaken this program. So he's actually become a proselytising sort of advocate of innovation, and it ties into the whole thing.
I did not know that, Greg. That's wonderful news.
In fact,
that's fantastic.
ABC 24 did a cut directly from their news on the day that he was down launching it in Canberra. And they carried it for 6.5 minutes. Malcolm Turnbull extemporising. It's pretty extraordinary, but anyway.
So we're actually one person away from Malcolm Turnbull tonight.
This
when
man-
Todd's there, I know he's probably hasn't washed that shirt since for a few weeks. So, the hands. Oh, he hasn't washed the hands.
That's
He's told
right.
me he was there.
So his eyes have gazed upon Malcolm Turnbull.
Yes.
Wow. It's very Susan Sondheim, isn't it? It's a photography. Do we want Malcolm as a televisual element, or are we happy to have him in the person? That's the question.
Oh, he must come in flesh. Must be at Lunaticks Live.
Come in the flesh.
You can't stream into this stuff.
So what else is happening in the tech world and in terms of production, and what's happening for you?
Did you win any more awards?
Any more
It's been
awards?
2 months since the last one, so have you won any more awards?
No, I have not won any more awards. I'm sure I'll find a competition to enter and give it another crack, though. No, the world of production over at Good Idea is strong and busy and doing lots of fun, great things. So unfortunately, I haven't done much research of what is happening in the world of creative innovation at this point in time.
So poor Newcastle, nothing's going on.
No, it is.
It's only us.
I
It
imagine
is.
something
Yes.
amazing is happening, but I didn't get my email this morning about that, unfortunately.
I think we
Okay.
should, I think
Well,
we should
okay.
go
So
back.
research that one for the next one. But at this stage, sort of a lead up to bringing and welcoming Todd to our little table here at Lunaticks Live, coming to you live from the Foghorn Brewhouse here on King Street in good old lovely Newcastle. We would like to play a little clip. It's an animation. It's called The King. And this was developed by the European Commission to try and explain to the good burgers of Europe just what the 3 S's is all about. So, Rod, you want to hit that button and play it, mate?
All is not well in the kingdom of smart. We are broke, my lord, and in the south, several dominions are getting desperate. What are we to do?
Place a tax on cows, sire.
No, a tax cut for millers.
We should build a new cathedral.
How about closing the borders?
What do you have to say? Speak up.
If I may be so bold, Your Grace, we urgently need an innovation strategy for smart specialization.
What are you talking about?
Well, it means that we have hungry dwarfs wanting to be fed, excited goblins longing to be unleashed, and sleeping giants ready to be awakened.
Hungry dwarves?
Yes, sire. You certainly remember our dwarf craftsmen in the mountains producing quality shoes, which were once so popular. But now, people buy cheap shoes and the dwarfs are struggling. Offer them a new challenge. Help them join forces with the artists, goblins and young engineers, and they could do great things again.
Okay, but what about the goblins? They have some crazy ideas, but neither the guilds nor the bankers will risk investing in them.
Your Excellency, you could easily unleash the goblins' potential. If you back them at the beginning, others would trust them. Then they could use their knowledge and skills to develop new techniques and thus help the giants.
The famous giants. Why are they sleeping?
They fell asleep because they haven't noticed the world is changing and needs new ideas. We need to wake them up. Get them together with other creative people and help them to focus their energies on improving their methods and setting themselves apart from our competitors.
Interesting, but how do we do this?
Your Majesty, unfortunately, you cannot dictate innovation. However, you can certainly cultivate it through entrepreneurial discovery. This cannot be done from inside the palace. You have to come out and listen to what they have to tell. You can convince them to work together and use the Smartorial funds to support them in their innovation efforts. We have all written it up for you. This manuscript explains how smart specialization can work, but beware, this is not a magical solution. It needs leadership, commitment, collaboration, and future-orientated investment and faith in our future.
Good, young lady. Let's innovate together. Let's go for smart specialization.
So that's what probably $500,000 buys you. And that's what the European Commission can afford. All those people in Brussels. That's what the English are really angry about, isn't it, Gordon?
Absolutely. I just want to get a little bit of. Would it cost you $500,000 to actually do that?
I would love for that to cost me $500,000.
Correction, euros. I should say euros.
Euros. What are euros going for nowadays?
I don't know.
Like
actually.
peso?
I'll do a
Lira?
quick look on the exchange. I'll get my app out. So, welcoming to the table here, the Lunaticks Live, number 3, episode 3, take 3, another effort at it, is Todd Williams. And Todd's the Chief Executive of the RDA Hunter. Welcome.
Thanks very much.
We need, we'll just make sure. You can use my microphone and we'll share it.
It's not very smart from me. Yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity to come and talk tonight, and congratulations on episode number 3. So thanks very much.
I'm just sorry, we're just having a bit of a mic issue. I just wanted to comment on that we didn't plan this 3 white shirts. It is a green screen, so we will online. You'll see that we'll have our ads on here, our branding, our logos, our sponsors.
It's all about the innovation.
So, Todd, explain what is smart specialization.
Well, of course, the animation, you can pick all of that off there, but we, Regional Development Australia, we're an economic development company, and what that means is we want people to come to the region to set up businesses, and we want people in the region to expand their business. That's economic development. Now, what we do a lot of the time is to look at other regions around Australia and indeed around the world to see what they're doing. It's really important that we understand what's happening globally, so we can do that here in the Hunter to grow here and have prosperity and get jobs. And you would know, Gordon, out of years and years, everyone's been talking all the time about let's be innovative. Being innovative is the way to create all this prosperity. So a number of years ago, we decided to do a scorecard, an innovation scorecard, and that was a couple of years ago. And year before last, we decided to benchmark Hunter Company innovation against other regions' innovation. And we did a lot of research and found out that the European Union has been doing a lot in the innovation space for well over 15 years. They've been measuring it, they've been benchmarking against each other, and in fact, the second biggest program for the EU and how they grow jobs is their innovation policy. 600 million euros go into innovation policy, and that's how they grow jobs. So last year we benchmarked the Hunter against the 190 European Union regions, and to see how innovative we were against them, and that's how smart specialisation started.
Sorry, can I ask, what qualifies innovation? Like when you're doing research, what are you looking at as a kernel of innovation?
Yeah, there's 2 base level indicators that we started with a few years ago. The first one is, have you developed a new product in the last 12 months? And the second one is, have you got a product to market faster? Extremely base level, but it's sort of universally recognised that they're two levels. Now, over in the EU, there's about 12 indicators of innovation, and we chose to benchmark against 4 of them. And without boring you too much, we went pretty well against countries like Greece. We were pretty bad against Germany, for example. Just sort of very synopsis.
Did you say Greece?
Yes, I said Greece.
You're actually measuring us against Greece. Fantastic.
But
Okay.
So that's important to get some base level data. So what do you do now? And what we learned when we did some analysis about the EU regions is how they... And smart specialisation is about competitive advantage. That's all it is. Now, us in the Hunter, we've got a lot of things happening. But it's important that we tell governments to get the right investment here for infrastructure and smart spending of public money. That'll drive also private money here in the region. So actually what a smart specialisation is only about your competitive advantage. So we've been working on this document that we launched a couple of weeks ago with the Prime Minister down in Canberra. And we're the first region in Australia to undertake this. And at the launch, we had, of course, the Prime Minister. We had 3 senators. We had the Ambassador for Germany. We had the Ambassador to the European Union. And one of the outcomes out of doing this, and if you want I can go through some more detail about what the Hunter Smart Specialisation is, but the Hunter's in a really sweet position. The EU wants to trade, because the EU is a trade zone, and they want to learn more about where? The Hunter, because we've got the same framework as they're using. So companies now have got the opportunity, because we've undertaken this, to trade and share ideas more with the EU.
Now, yeah, I think a lot of us are a bit lived in the Hunter, especially me. I'm 20 years colour. We see lots and lots of strategies. We don't see them strategies go into actionable and deliverable plans. So how is this going to be different?
Yeah, that's one of the really important things that we've worked on with this. There's 7 competitive advantages for the hunter, and what's important about having 7 is what we've left out. We've had some really robust conversations in the region about what's not in there. Competitive advantage is about having people that will employ people, so the high value added jobs. Having things like, for example, this upsets some people, but tourism, for example, is lovely. We need that. That's very important, but it's a lovely add-on. So you'll see in our smart specialisation for the hunter, all of the areas are about high-level value-added jobs, very high paying, and the opportunity to scale up. So there's 7 there. We've articulated that, and what the government likes about that is we've actually come up with that as a region, and now we're in an opportunity to talk with the government about getting those areas funded. And there's 13 strategies that support those 7 competitive advantages. There's one being the Hunter Innovation Network.
Yeah, I was pretty interested about that. So what is it? Because there's networking, there's a lot of networks around here. Some work, some don't. So what's going to be different? And I like the $1 million price tag, you stick to it. So, what's it going to do? What are you going to try and achieve with the network?
Yep. What's really important about not having another strategy or not having another network is, I'll just give you an example about this. There's a company, I won't name it, it's in the strategy, please have a look. They've been trying to get a DA through for 3 years to expand their factory. They can't get it through. They've got contracts now to produce their product with how does a company grow, engage properly with research and TAFE and universities, governments, and also getting DAs through, for example, for growth. So it's actually, it's very grassroots. It's not pie-in-the-sky strategy driven. It works with businesses.
All right. The other one I wanted to say, because it's to do with funds, you've got an excellent strategy, which is, let me get to it, is it me? Now, Hunter Innovation Initiative Investment Funds. Now, in the audience, there's lots of startups, there's a lot of organisations that are looking for funds. Is it a startup fund, or is it just another type of fund that, what's it there? Do we get excited?
Not yet, I haven't got the money for that.
Oh.
I'm working on that one. But what's important about that is that in Europe, this is a really important point. The people on the Hunter, on the network, on the innovation network, come from those 3 areas, but it's not led by one of those 3 areas. It's not driven by research, it's not driven by government, and it's not driven by business. It's very consultative, and there's a very strong governance structure over it. Now, what happens in the EU is a lot of regions have these investment funds. So everyone can see who's doing what, tie it into your competitive advantage, and see what's going to have the major return on investment. So it's up to that group that will buy in and it'll
work internally.
No, it'll be consultative, but it's really important that all of those 3 groups are represented properly. Yes, the tribal elders in the region, but also new people. But it's important that the charter, or how it's governed, is by consultation and is not driven by either one. And that's worked very successfully. That's one of the critical success factors over in Europe.
Todd, there was actually a question I'd be interested to get your response to. The Grattan Institute brought out a report, would have been last week, about the collaborative economy. And they estimate within Australia it could be anywhere worth up to close to $50 million, going to $100 million in the next 5 years. And that's anything from Airbnb, Uber, very, very much the things that I guess Marcus was doing in the whole Newcastle Renew and all that. Does this figure somewhere in this plan? And when you talk about new players, because looking at your current board and the people who are partners to it, I would describe these as legacy industries, great depth and so forth, and not to be discounted, but are there the ideas and the energy to see another future?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there's a couple of different ways to answer that. With collaboration, it was really interesting. When we're doing the innovation scorecards, Hunter companies rated themselves very highly for collaboration. But collaboration here in the Hunter is different collaboration from over at Europe. So in the Hunter, I think you get a lot of like groups talking with each other. and sharing information, but not with other types of industries, but over in Europe primarily. And this is one of the points I wanted to make about this relationship that the Hunters formed with the Ruhr Valley over in Germany. Collaboration over there is Audi's set up next to Vodafone, and they share information about braking systems and those types of things. I'd challenge that in the Hunter in Australia, we're not at that level yet about totally different industries sharing information. So I think collaboration is different. So yes, it's a great it's one of the most important things, and by having that honest broker approach with that Hunter Innovation, it's actually forced collaboration in a way. So collaboration is one of the crucial success elements to innovation, there's no doubt.
The actual idea, where was the kernel? Where did it start? Was it something that you saw, or you were aware of what was happening in Europe, or?
Well, a bit of both, and I got a bit, like Gordon, I think, I got a bit sick of people saying innovation all the time, and the classic mantra, to manage it, you've got to measure it, and it was just nothing. There's no details about innovation at all, so we decided just to start off and measure it. So that's how it all started, and now we've got great access now internationally, and it's a great opportunity for the Hunter and businesses to read up on and get involved.
Now, I just want to touch, that connection to Malcolm Turnbull there. Don't get any wrong ideas.
I haven't washed that hand since.
That's awesome. So now we have in the audience a lot of new companies, especially in the renewables areas and the transport areas. Bunch of nerds. Now, it's an emerging field around here, and you've got the ear of the Prime Minister, which is not really happened here before. It was a very shock seeing your face on the television. But also you gain interest from overseas. I think you talked about Bavaria. Yeah. So how do we, as the emerging economy here in the Hunter, that young, how do we participate? How do we use your network and connect to Bavaria and the Prime Minister?
Yep. I think I'd encourage everyone to have a quick read, if not just the executive summary of the smart specialisation that we've done. It's on our website, and I'll obviously share it. It's beautiful. But to be innovative and to drive business, we have a fortnightly hookup now with Invest Bavaria. They've got a lot of money they want to invest. They want to know what's happening out here in the Hunter. And I've found that I go back to the usual companies that I know. I know you. I obviously don't know everyone, but we've got to find out who's doing what. But can I just add that in here and overseas, they are traditional industries, but the way to be more innovative is to times that to the power of ideas and using high-speed broadband and the technology. So I think in isolation, technology is a key enabler, but when put to one of these key industries, that's when we can really get some big runs on the board, and I'd be really interested to talk with anyone about that.
So are you looking for people, companies, hands up, who want money with a proper business plan? So I'm looking at quite a few in the audience who are probably they've just woken up. Yeah, they're all hands are going up now.
On that note, what are you interested in hearing from? Is there a specific area of technology or?
I want to know about people doing things differently that's got a different outcome, that's all. Well, I was talking last week to a robotic dairy up near Gloucester, and robotic dairies aren't new per se, but it is new technology for the region. So those types of case studies is really important for us to tell governments and also internationally about what's happening here. So instead of saying we're using technology, having those tangible examples is really, really important.
Well, I think that's a really good point. We need to wind things up here and move on to the next subject. But look, everyone, a round of applause for Todd Williams.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you so much for coming.
And
thank you.
And it's very, very exciting, and I think it's a space to watch, so we will be definitely doing that.
Congratulations again, yeah. And I'll share information with you, Gordon, and everyone, and look forward to your next episode.
Okay. Oh, well, we're actually live this because we got you on record now. So we will be playing it back to you constantly when I go into your office.
That's right.
So now, I think there are some little ads to be played or some sponsors' messages to play there, Rod. Let's get queuing up. Here we go.
Williamtown Aerospace Centre, the perfect destination when your business is ready to fly. Located in Port Stephens, just 2 hours north of Sydney, Williamtown Aerospace Centre is strategically located adjacent to the existing infrastructure of RAV Base Williamtown and Newcastle Airport. One Technology Place is the exciting first stage of the Williamtown Aerospace Centre. Foundation tenants who have already established at this preeminent location include Raytheon Australia, Lockheed Martin Australia Electronic Systems Division, Bohemia Interactive Simulations, and Nova Systems. The campus-style commercial and technology park includes commercial office, technical, and light industrial space for lease. Technology Place also includes a new 95-room Mercure Hotel and Conference Centre. Williamtown Aerospace Centre, the perfect destination when your business is ready to fly.
Welcome back here to Lunaticks Live, number 3, episode 3, take 3 perhaps, and we're coming to you live from the Foghorn Brewhouse down in wonderful King Street. And of course you can hear the noise in the pub and people enjoying themselves, eating these fantastic pizzas, drinking the beer that's brewed here behind us in these gorgeous vats, stainless steel. This is love, steel. It's great, sexy, it's wonderful. Anyway, now joining us here on the panel again is going to be Dr. Gary Ellem. He's the Program Manager at the Tom Farrell Institute. And he's going to talk to us about the future urban transport infrastructure needs, because it's all infrastructure tonight. It's their big focus. And I guess it'd be interesting to see where does infrastructure fit in the whole innovation process, and where does the Hunter fit in that? And is the Hunter at a place where perhaps it could be a bit of a trendsetter in some ways?
Can I just butt in?
Sure.
This is the most important thing is, when we was just doing a little bit background work onto you, you're being called a futurist. Can we call you a futurist? I didn't know Newcastle had one. Is it a true reflection of you?
It's a difficult one to talk about, really. It's sort of I'm in a coming out sort of ceremony around being a futurist, I think. It's always that futurist always sounded kind of similar to wanker in my mind, which is a bit of a worry. But I'd call myself a sustainability futurist. I like to put two terms together. I come from the Tom Farrell Institute, which is the Environment Sustainability Institute of the university. But I also like to think that there's sort of two kinds of futurists out there. There's one kind of futurist which is kind of trying to predict what the future might be, and there's another kind of futurist who's sort of saying, well, there's a number of different sort of strategic options appearing, and these ones look nicer than these ones, so let's try and create that future and head in this direction. And so I'm firmly in the second camp. So I'm not just trying to sort of guess what's happening in the future. What I'm trying to do is to identify good strategic pathways and to help people to point towards those pathways.
To build a better future.
Let's all make the world a better place. Yeah, that's the thing. No, really what it's trying to do is to try and work out, as new technologies come on board, for example, trying to work out which technologies are incremental and which kinds are transformational. But often the transformational ones are transformational because they open up a new business case, but that business case requires a new policy platform, and that policy platform actually needs to talk to society and get to society to come on board. So it's trying to connect all of those things together to be able to bring those transformational opportunities through. So that's really sort of trying to connect a few dots. That's really what the plan is.
Now, this is all fantastic talk, but didn't you get the email about the white shirts, mate?
I'm trying to find some middle ground here. Middle ground.
Oh,
Thank
right.
you, thank you.
There's a champion there, Olivia, for you.
Next time I'm wearing a white collared shirt.
Okay.
It's
yeah,
true.
good.
Yeah,
High collar.
I
Nice
will.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
So-
Anyway, back to important things.
Yeah, back on topic. So what is the future for transports? You know, we don't want to talk about light rail, so please don't.
It's interesting because I talk a lot about autonomous vehicles. People assume that I'm in some way anti-light rail, and I'm not sure that's a good assumption. I think there's really different horses for different courses. And what I do is sort of look at some new technologies coming on board. So the two new technologies are really out of the digital space and work out what happens when the digital space hits the traditional transport space. And that brings a couple of things out. So one of those is really connectivity, which allows sharing much easier. So we've all heard of Uber, for example, but Uber also have another product called Uber Pool, and that's where they actually start to do it's kind of like a dynamically routed bus. You know, you can pick up several people heading in the same direction, and that brings you much better work in terms of reducing congestion and reducing the cost of transport. If you take that to the next step and you start to then say, well, not only do you have the connectivity to be able to do all that sort of on-the-fly ride-sharing stuff, and we can start to think about the vehicle itself with AI driving itself, you've got this new platform then, which is the sort of autonomous shared vehicle, which ends up being able to compete with the private passenger car in terms of cost and quality of service. And that for us is a bit of a game changer because we've been building cities for the last 70 years based on the private passenger car. And so while we talk about transport and public transport, we always think about transport as being that little bit right in the centre of the city. But in fact, most of us actually live out in the suburbs, and it's that connectivity between the suburb and the city that's the critical problem we're trying to solve. That's where 80% of trips are. They're in the private passenger. Yeah. And the other 20% in Australia aren't public transport. That's actually walking is about 15% of that next 20. So people are looking for this personalised transport. But the question is, how do you do personalised transport without actually needing so many vehicles and not needing so much fuel? Now that's a critical question for Australia because it turns out that if you have 80% of trips via the private passenger car and you don't make cars and your oil supplies are collapsing, the import cost for that transport sector ends up being about 20% of goods imports to the nation. That's actually bigger than the mining sector in terms of balance of trade issues for the economy. And we don't have a way to fix that other than this new technology platform which is coming on board. So there's every reason why Australia should jump in and try and embrace this opportunity.
So can you tell us a bit more about what this new platform is and when we expect to see a bit more information about that?
Yeah, so if we talk about autonomous vehicles, so let's say Uber Pool, for example. Uber Pool is ready to go. There's already, it's already operational in a bunch of different cities overseas. 40% of Uber trips in San Francisco are via Uber Pool. It's up and running. Can't happen in Australia, of course, because we have this wonderful legislation because Uber works under the hire car legislation. The hire car doesn't allow multiple hirings. It only allows, you can only hire it once to finish the journey and then you have to start again. So even though the technology platform is there, the legislative platform holds it back. That's what I mean about, like technology, business case, regulatory platform. Okay. In terms of the autonomous vehicles, there's two people are sort of building different autonomous vehicles, and some people are trying to build an autonomous vehicle they want to sell you as a replacement for your private passenger car, and some that are trying to build an autonomous vehicle that they will give you as transport as a service. Now, Google is very much in the second category. If we think about autonomous vehicles, there's really we like to codify them, and there's 5 different levels. There's level 0 to level 4 of autonomy. So level 0 is really a car we had in the 1950s. There's nothing autonomous. Level 1 starts to have some autonomous features like, ABS or lane control. Level 2 starts to put some of those together. So on the freeway, you can start to have sort of hands-free because you've got adaptive cruise control with lane following technology. And if you sort of oversee the car, it can drive by itself a little bit, sort of super cruise control. Level 3 starts to put that together in a better way so that you can start to not be so attentive, and it will say, I'm getting confused, and give you time to go back and take over. Level 4 is the big change, because at level 4, the car itself is classified as the driver. Okay? So if you're thinking about where we are in this stage, Google has actually applied to the National Highway Authority in the US to say, we think that having a human in the loop actually decreases the safety of our vehicle. And the Highway Authority has agreed. So they've actually agreed that Google has produced a level 4 car. There's issues, of course, because it turns out that no state in the US will allow them to drive a level 4 car on the road without a licensed driver in the steering wheel and without a steering wheel in the vehicle. And so there's still some legislative hurdles to get over. But in terms of the technology, we haven't worked out how to mass produce it, but we're at a stage where it's kind of there and it's still getting better.
So we hear all the stories from the US with Google cars. We're also hearing from the UK where they're legislating that they're going to dedicate one lane to test trucks, a series of trucks that will be autonomous. They still have the driver in. So where are we in New South Wales, Australia? We don't seem to be any trials, and I think there's an inquiry at the moment in New South Wales.
Australia does have a few small-scale trials. So there's been 2 trials of a Volvo vehicle in South Australia. The Western Australians are about to do a trial of a shared autonomous bus, but really in New South Wales, not a lot's been happening, and that's now sort of slowly bumping up the chain. We've just had the Future Transport Forum summit, sort of down in Sydney, that's been hosted by New South Wales Transport. They've actually now, New South Wales Transport actually rededicated one of their facilities. The old crash facility that was out in Western Sydney has now been really turned into the new sort of transport innovation hub for New South Wales. And the whole idea then is we start to bring on how to think about autonomous vehicles. So we're not there, but we're trying to catch up fast, I think, and government is starting to listen on this.
So you made a submission, what was your submission about?
So my submission was to the inquiry was really trying to highlight those strategic benefits for us. You know, like often we think because we don't make cars, we just should be a technology taker, and it's actually quite the opposite. It's because we don't make cars that we need to get this rolled out as quickly as possible. If we don't do this, we'll spend almost $1 trillion in imports over the next 10 years. If we don't get this right. Getting it right even 1 year ahead of time will save us almost $60 billion. So, we have every reason to push hard on this. And if you do push hard, then you've got the chance of having those add-on benefits. Because it's not just the car that's part of this system. This car sits in an ecosystem, and it's actually trying to get all those parts of the ecosystem to work. That's it's the Wi-Fi backbone. It's how do you find route finding? How do people understand how they transition from walking to an autonomous vehicle? How do you think about multimodal journeys that are all sort of packaged up into one service? So I just buy a trip from here to Sydney, and a car picks me up, takes me on the fast train, picks me up the other end, and it's like integrated ticketing and just a flow through all the way. How do all of those things fit together? Is really sort of how we're trying to go forward, because we want to try and make this personalised service, personalised transport system that works for you at a price that competes with a private passenger car. That's what we're really trying to put on the table.
So in the Hunter, I mean, this transition to this, we heard a few weeks ago the discussions with truck drivers and the owner drivers, and they're worried about spending $250,000 on the truck. Their potential jobs could be at risk, their livelihood could be at risk. So what are the jobs of the future? We've got great companies like Farrell doing electric vehicles and electric pods. What are the jobs, and what's the role for the Hunter? Could we be a Detroit of the future for autonomous vehicles?
I think the important thing is not to focus necessarily on the mass manufacturing, because that's not something we have a lot of strengths on. Most of our stuff is in the more boutique specialty things. So we're actually quite good to be an innovation industry. We can prototype things, we can test things quite well. If we are going to look for some mass manufacturing opportunities, it might be as a component supplier to a bigger industry. So things like, it's pretty likely that all of these cars will be battery driven. At the same time as we're doing a lot of stuff around home battery storage, and Australia's looking at being the lead out for testing, all that sort of stuff. But we don't actually have an advanced battery manufacturing facility in Australia. We don't make lithium-ion batteries. So if you're going to participate in that circle, you might say, well, Victoria and South Australia might have car assembly sewn up, but in terms of actually where you would do the battery manufacturing, well, that's not sewn up yet. And we're quite good at building, large-scale facilities that, think about a Tesla Gigafactory. It's about a $5 billion investment, employs about 6,000 people, takes up a land space of about 100,000 hectares or something like that. And it turns out, well, that's the same scale as Tomago aluminium, that's the same scale as Bayswater Power Station. These are all the things that we've got the capability in terms of planning to put together if we connect the dots in the right way.
I mean, and because we know that from recent studies, the future of work, and Oxford University and City are looking at that in fact nearly 45% of jobs that are registered with the US Department of Labour will actually have disappeared or been roboticised in the next 5 to 10 years. So, I mean, it's quite nerve-wracking, I guess.
So, change is happening, surprise, surprise. And there's two ways to approach change. One is to sit there and worry about being impacted, and the other one is to be proactive and try and work out how you can use that change to impact others. So certainly if we sit down and do nothing, we will be impacted. There's no doubt about that. It's sort of, it comes to us to be proactive and try and search out where those future, yes, when the horse ended, it turns out that we've had far fewer farriers today than we used to when the horses were around. But does that mean that nobody has jobs? No, it doesn't, because we found more exciting things to do. So, sorry, don't want to diss farriers out there. I'm sure it is actually quite an exciting job.
No, it's a great profession. Perhaps I may take it up and be bespoke farrier.
I hear there's a lot of calm involved or something. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Gary, for joining us, and a round of applause for a great explanation.
Thank you, cheers.
Of the future of infrastructure and transport, urban transport. So at this stage, we've got another sponsored ad to play, and a little word from those good folk who have put forward some ideas. But here you are, the Foghorn Lunaticks live at the Brewhouse.
Hi, it's James Garvey and Sean Sherlock, and we're here out the front of the Foghorn Brewhouse. These are our old heritage doors that we've put on. Why don't you come on inside and we'll show you our wonderful old venue. We have a 70 kilowatt solar system on the roof that generates the power for all of our needs, typically while the sun is up. And that powers our pizza oven and all the electrical appliances. It's working quite well for us. And the other thing, throughout the entire venue, we have free Wi-Fi open to the public because we want to see the venue used as a workspace for companies and people that want to have meetings and people that just need to get out of working from home, get in.
Yeah, of course, one of the great things about being in a co-working space is that there are others around you facing similar challenges at any particular time. So you're stuck on something, you're talking about it over coffee, someone makes a suggestion, you've got a different way of looking at things. But one of the strengths of 1804 being focused around a particular area, clean tech and smart cities, is that we're actually also dealing with very specific problems which are often closely related. And that creates a terrific opportunity. It amplifies the co-working experience.
Your colleagues have no reason to jealously guard their own position. There's no competition aspect. There's no political games of I'm going to be promoted above you, so I'll undermine you. And so everyone goes to these unfamiliar extents to help each other out because we're all in the same game. You know, if we do well, then our colleagues do well, and if our colleagues do well, then we do well. So there's a real cohesion.
It's a focused co-working space in that residents are building scalable product-based startups, and we're looking to address global markets. But it's focused around a particular vertical. That's clean tech and smart cities. We think that's important because it's really a differentiator for this region. It's a big problem facing the world, a solution to be solved for the future.
Welcome back here to Lunaticks Live at the Foghorn Brewhouse here in King Street. And of course Hunter TV has been deeply involved. Rod is behind the camera there working away, and we're on the floor manager. We have Andrew, and he's working away. Jason Taylor. See, I knew I was going to do it. Sorry, mate. Remind me of Andrew. Anyway, joining us here at the table is Megan Sharkey. Now, Megan nearly missed out. Actually, we were waiting for you.
Yes,
Where's
Oh, I was sitting in the audience back there, watching.
So
You're just making me heart pump.
So Megan's CycleSafe, but also an urban planner. It's a lovely combo and really complimentary, I guess, in following up from what Gary was saying. So, Megan, what's your story?
Beautiful. Well, I'm an urban planner. I love cities. So I'm a sustainability generalist for cities, essentially. And at the moment, I'm the chair of the CycleSafe Network. And what the CycleSafe Network is a 240-kilometer cycle and walking path across Newcastle and Lake McCrory. And we're actually asking for the government to fund this. And what it is a 140-kilometer project for $164 million. And we'll actually be releasing tomorrow some of the business case numbers in the Herald.
So how much, and what sort of form is that going to take? I'm just thinking about the concrete.
Yeah,
I mean, how is it going to be constructed? What's the...
Well, the idea is to construct it over 7 years. And the reason being, everyone goes, well, we love cycleways. And we like walking. We love the foreshore path. But if you look at Newcastle City Council's cycling plan, and if you look at Lake McCrory's cycling plan, it'll take them 75 years to build. So, when I'm long and gone, I'll get to walk on a cycling path, walk on a footpath, or cycle on a cycling path. So we said, well, we got to get it done quick. That's what this is about, building it quick. Now, the council does have some money to fund portions of it, but we're asking the state government to actually fund it. Now, they'll get the health benefits. They're the ones who actually get the health benefit back into the hospital. So when I get healthier, they're the ones who recoup the cost. So it makes sense that they should fund it. And to be fair, 140 kilometers of walking and cycling paths for 164 million is nothing when you consider the inner city bypass for 2.8 kilometers is close to 300 million. So we're not really asking for a lot.
And a little insider told me that the steel that they used to reinforce the sides was actually not properly spec'd. It was supposed to be resistant to rust and etc. They put it into the concrete, and guess what happened? It started to rust, and each and every one of those piers had to be replaced.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. But you know, governments love cost-best benefit analysis. Cool, my teeth. So, what is the numbers? You know, what are the real benefits for just having a cycleway? Yeah.
So real benefits in terms of
health, financial.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, if you're thinking of it big picture, well, of course, you're getting healthy just by moving. You're not sitting in the car for 3 and 4 hours. It's going to cost a lot less because you're saving money on your petrol. You're saving money on your wear and tear of your vehicle. You're saving money by parking. And most of the time, you're saving money and time, particularly if you're doing less than 10Ks. Now, what we found, so we did 2 things with the CycleSafe network. One is that we looked at the current way the government looks at cost-benefit guidelines. So, for instance, the recent Hunter Infrastructure Investment Fund. They need a cost-benefit for that. Well, part of that problem is you have to assume lots of things. You have to make this assumption or make that assumption. Well, the government already told us what their assumption was. They want 5% of people cycling, and they want a 5% reduction in obesity. Well, that makes sense. Let's start with those assumptions. If you want to get to 5%, let's use the CycleSafe network as a plan to actually cost what it would take us to get there. Let's actually cost what that strategy you put forward, you never complete. Let's see what it would take to get there. So that's what we've done. So we said, okay, we know we're going to get to 5%. So we could take out all those assumptions you have to put in a cost benefit because we knew where we're going. And then we used Transport for New South Wales' own economic analysis tool and just dropped the 5% in, looked at 14,000 people. So if 14,000 people across Newcastle and Lake McCrory got on our CycleSafe network, how long do you think it would pay itself back? $164 million, 14,000 people, and 140 kilometers.
Just quickly doing
pretty
useless.
Come on, do the math, do the math. I'll give you, it's months, it's months.
It's months.
It's months. And it's less than 12. That gives 1 through 11.
Sorry,
it's not 1
I
through
wasn't
5.
very good at mathematics. Put me in my naughty corner.
Sorry, come on, you should have been.
All right, 7 months. So
7 months.
That's blue sky. I said, great. They said they want to get to 5%. let's see what it looks like. In their own cost-benefit tool, 7 months, return on investment. Why would you not do it?
So this is what really interests me, because you are an urban planner, and we're talking about future infrastructure. And one of the things, whether it's in energy or transport other than cycleways, there is a mindset that needs to be changed. And in the urban planning side, from my experiences, there's still a resistance of looking at the way they used to do in the old days.
Yeah.
So is it just purely a cost-benefit analysis that changes urban planners' ideas of what new infrastructure for the future, or?
Well, I think you probably need to separate us from the government sometimes.
Nope.
Not. Well, then I would say it's about people's health. If you focus initially on a person and the person's health, you'll get good outcomes. You'll start thinking, what does that person need to live? What do they need to walk? What do they need to go to their home? What do they need to do this? What do they need to be happy? You know, and you start providing some of those things, and they go, okay, great. Now, that's there. That's simple. Now, with the planner, when I look at that and I go, great, what does that person need? And I start building the project around them and start building the cost benefit around them. I think when you do that, you tend to have people tell you no less because you've thought about the person first. So I'd say from urban planners, if they start thinking about a person's health and drive the project that way, you'll get sustainability, you'll get innovation, you'll get those other things. But start there and let your project build you that way. Start problem mapping from the person's health. And I think if we did that as urban planners, we'd actually get the outcomes we want to live in a city because they're about us and not, you know, this concrete building that has money in it, which is great, but I can't eat it. So thinking from a person's health, urban planners will start driving better decisions.
Now, I know from listening to the news and reading the Newcastle Herald, City Morning Herald, there is a little bit of resistance from certain politicians who are very much vehicle-oriented, car-oriented. Have you experienced this? And if you have, how do you get over it? How do you persuade someone who wants to run you down if you're wearing Lycra?
I don't wear a Lycra, so I don't have that problem. The other day, I was riding in Newcastle, and someone shouted at me, and they left their window down, so I biked up to them, and I had a CycleSafe network card, because I always carry them, and so then I tossed it in their window, and I said, "You're right, I'd love to get off the road, support the CycleSafe network." And he looked at it, and he goes, "Oh, all right," and that's it, drove out. So, you know, sometimes I think it's just about going, hey, I'm actually on your side. I'm not trying to piss you off. And you could go there. Now, as far as government officials, I usually try and do a few things. Make them look good. That's it. So with the CycleSafe network, I've broken it into phases that they could fund and build one of it in their election cycle. So they could stand in front of a pretty picture. That usually gets them across the line.
So are we going to hear some exciting news tomorrow? So should everyone buy the Newcastle Herald tomorrow?
Yeah, they'll get a teaser because I'm going to tease them for 2 weeks or so before I release the full report.
Ah.
Yeah, so look at the Herald for your teaser and follow us through the few weeks until you get the full report and economic critique. So we actually had the Faculty of Business look through the cost-benefit analysis of 3 reports that we always go to for active travel. We actually had them critique it. And then we formed a research project with the Hunter Medical Research Institute, the Tom Farrell Institute, and the Faculty of Business to actually give them a real cost-benefit number, to establish a baseline and do an after around this project so that we'll know what it would look like in Australia. We will have our own Australian example of what it would mean to walk and cycle, what it would mean to be those Europe, and we'll actually get the benefit because we're starting to do it now. So we've actually started building the research now. We're starting to ask those questions so that when they give us the money, we already have the baseline. We can already set ourselves forward and know that the next time another city wants to do one, they can use what we've learned and what we've actually established to be real benefits or real risk to a project.
When you say that your plan can action quite quickly to be built, how quickly are we talking and what is the scope? I know it's from the Lake Macquarie to Newcastle, but where are we looking at with the cycle paths?
About Swansea heading all the way west towards Beresfield and about north to Williamtown. So that's sort of the vague scope. Now, we've broken this into 3 phases. The initial phase, nearly all of that is ready to be built now. So it's either in a detailed design, like it's done detailed design, or it's in the process of being detailed design. So what we've done, and we've worked with Newcastle City Council over the last 18 months, was actually look at not only what they were designing, but try to help influence so they can improve the safety. Because if a primary school age child can't ride on it, it's not a cycleway. It's not a, like, they have to be able to ride on it safely. That's mandatory. And improve their principles. So with phase 1, we looked at what could be built within the next year. What could hit the ground running if they had money? And the money is holding them back. And then we looked at what are some key connections that we need to make. Like the university to the CBD. They're opening new space in a year and a half. It's really important that we have that connection. Or the John Hunter Hospital, or from Charlestown to the city. So we prioritized based on what was ready to be built now, and then looked at what could be built quickly within 3 years, but might not be ready but provide good benefit. So like some of that Charlestown to the city route, well, there's no easements. It's already planned, but it's not designed. That means that we can do it, we can design it, and we don't have to worry about a long planning delay. So we've looked at that. End of 2018, they gave us money. They gave us $34 million in a month. By end of 2018, we'd have an additional 28 kilometers of walking and cycling paths for the highest density areas of Newcastle and Lake Macquarie.
Cool.
So, well, thank you very much, Megan. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Something
thank you for having me.
Newcastle Herald tomorrow.
Yes.
A little teaser, and then the report's out on what date?
It'll be about 2 weeks. So next week's I'm going to send it to Transport for New South Wales and some others first. Let them have a go at it, and then we'll send it off.
So, okay, well, fantastic. Great initiative.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, and a round of applause for Megan. Okay.
Now we're going to be doing a bit of a hot. So
Yeah, a
if
hot
you
spot.
me on hot swap.
Thank you very much, Megan.
We've run out of ads, so if you want your business promoted at ridiculous prices, give us your ad next time. So next,
and next time we'll all wear white shirts, and we'll get your ad to be projected onto it with using, screen technology. So, Alec, thank you very much for joining us. So, Alec Roberts, Clean As. Tell us your story.
So, Clean As, we're basically renewable energy advocates for the Newcastle region.
Yeah.
So, we basically develop community renewable energy projects and implement them. We basically, last year we did Hunter Wetlands, and we raised $20,000 and put solar panels on the roof of the coffee shop there, saving them about $4,000 a year in electricity expenses.
So for the future, urban energy production, what do you see? Is everyone's going to, every coffee shop, going to have solar on the roof, or are we going to have a mix, micro networks? I'm using all these buzzwords I've been told over the years. So, what is the future for an urban environment?
Well, for the urban environments, you've got what you can produce in the city and what you're going to produce out of the city for it. So with your electricity supply, you obviously got solar as a especially big thing in Australia. It's very, very effective. You've also got local heat and cooling networks you can set up. You can also have production of biogas to produce electricity from waste. This can be done within the city limits. And of course, outside of the city, you've got, you can have solar farms, wind farms to generate electricity. So it's quite a large thing. So, but on top of that, you've also got other important components like storage. So you need storage of electricity. So
I'm just saying, can you put the mic nearer to your mouth?
Sorry.
So it's easier.
Well, wonderful knowledge is coming out, and we're not hearing it.
Sorry. So basically, with storage, you've got battery storage, which is very popular at the moment. But there's other technologies being developed at the moment. One in particular is hydrogen. So basically, while the sun's shining, you use electrolysis to produce the hydrogen. When the sun's not shining, you burn the hydrogen to produce electricity. So it's just another form of storage. And they're currently planning to do some trials of pump storage in Queensland at the moment with an ex-gold mine. pumping it from one reservoir down to another reservoir, and that's another form of storage that can be used.
So, forgive my ignorance, but how does Clean As work? Do I, as a business owner or as a homeowner, come to you to get advice on how to better efficiently store my energy? Or
So what we basically do, apart from, we obviously do an advocacy role where we go and give talks to community groups and that and tell them how they can do things, but we also identify prospective hosts that we can go off and we then, these are organisations, preferably not-for-profits or charitable organisations that can't get commercial loans necessarily. And what we do is we audit their facilities and identify what energy efficiency can be done, what low-hanging fruit can be implemented. Some of these things don't cost anything. It's just a case of what they change of what they do in the way they do, switching lights off and shutting doors.
So can this be taken up to like a city or a big corporate? I know you're in the community side of it, but we got a Newcastle City Council, Lane Macquarie City Council. How can they take some of their ideas from you, especially on efficiencies?
So the councils have already been doing quite a lot of work, and this Lake Mac have done an amazing amount of work in energy efficiency and also with solar on their own facilities, and we're hoping to work with them to implement on a number of a number of like surf clubs and community halls and things like that where they've got large electricity bills, and these are council-owned facilities.
Does when you're creating, putting solar on particular roofs, especially when you're sharing, is it net sharing and net metering?
Yeah, so there's also virtual net metering. It's got a name change now. It's now called local electricity trading.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so we've got to get
Can you
used to it.
stop that?
Well, it's also hard because they're still calling it virtual net metering in some places overseas as well. So what this basically is that you generate power on a roof. Your excess power you can then sell to somebody else to consume within your local neighbourhood. At the moment, we don't have the structures in place to do this properly, because if you did it at the moment, you still get charged as if your electricity was going all the way to the power stations and back, whereas it might just be going down the street. But there's a number of key projects going on at the moment under the guise of the Institute of Sustainable Futures through University of Technology Sydney. So they're doing a trial of, I think it's 5 sites around Victoria, New South Wales, to test this out.
So
there's the green bonds question, though. I think that
Oh,
we
yeah,
talk about as well, because
yeah.
I mean, we need to somehow fund it. And one of the areas we were talking about a few weeks back was the use of green bonds. So what's that about?
So we did a project where we're looking at different funding mechanisms to implement these things, and we came across green bonds, which is quite an innovative mechanism. So you probably understand how a bond works. It's a form of debt, like a promise that's made.
Yep.
And basically a green bond is the same thing, but it's for sustainable projects only. So it's for like renewable energy, energy efficiency. It's even for things like smart cities, ICT. It's things that provide the right environment in the future for where we want to move to.
So it's not just about power production. So these green bonds. You're talking about future infrastructure projects that may create efficiencies in, say, transport.
Yeah, and also sustainable water practice. So if you've got a sewage treatment works that needs upgrading, that can be included in green bonds as well.
Cool. Where's this website? Now, is there a limit? Is there a size? Do you have to be? Can I do it with my bank?
Size to make it profitable. So it's around about probably the $20 million mark to make it viable. So one of the ideas we came up with was actually pooling a number of projects together, and say the Hunter Councils pooling together their projects and issuing a green bond for the collective number of projects.
Right. Okay.
So do you also, one of the big things I think it's like jobs. So we're the mining area. Well, people like to say. So where are the jobs coming out of this green renewable energy? Can people see them?
Well, I think with all these things, we have to have a proper transition plan, and to transition people to move into new roles and new employment. I used to work in IT. I had staff that were working on technology that was going out the door, so I got them retrained. You know, I don't think that's a thing that's a problem. You know, it's just something that's got to be planned and implemented.
Okay.
Well, that's probably a very good note to end on, I think. So it's all a matter of having a bit of vision, having some courage, and trying to take it forward. But round of applause for Ali and joining us here on Lunaticks Live. Thank you very much. So that's definitely a space to be watching in the next few months, next years to follow. So thank you very much for joining us here, the Foghorn, Brewhouse, Lunaticks Live, episode 3. And the next one will be in a couple of months' time, which will be all about cohabiting and cohabiting.
Or the PM will join us
The PM,
for the election.
The election
Yep.
special. And to thank Hunter TV, all our good folk, and all the folks who are here joining us and supporting us. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you all. Thank you.
The final time. So just over about 6 minutes over. Yeah, if I knew Megan was here, that second one could have been cut to 10.
Oh, look, it's one of those things, we're trying to cut it to an hour. The guest list was on